For any of you guys who don't know, Restaurant Week is a widespread opportunity in the restaurant space to take advantage of typically lower or lull times during the season, whether you work in a very touristy based environment or you have a lot of influx of people for sporting events or certain fundraisers, etc. Restaurant Week is a really great way to capitalize on the times when individuals aren't in your town, aren't typically coming to your restaurant itself, because of this brand and wide recognition around your town or your local area to the foodies who are going to be coming in and the people nearby or people who aren't local. It's a way to bolster the economy in your local area, and specifically which focuses on the hospitality space. So for you as an individual, whatever role you guys own today, you're somehow involved in the restaurant space. So Restaurant Week, in my opinion, and I think a handful of you guys are interested in seeing more about it, is a way to not only build your presence in the local town that you serve, but also just make your restaurant known or make your country club known, etc. There's ways to make a lot of impact for your bottom line with pretty basic involvement with your local town. So today we're going to be talking about specifically some of the things you can do, not only just for Restaurant Week, but that do contribute very well to that time. So I say that because there's a lot of tips and tricks and just genuine marketing foundational work that you can do after Restaurant Week or before Restaurant Week. It kind of goes beyond just this specific time. But a couple key things I'll be mentioning are specifically those that relate to how to make the best impact during Restaurant Week for you guys. Let me backtrack. I'm Andrea Michel. I'm the channel marketing manager at Upserve, again, who's a restaurant management platform for restaurateurs across the US. And I'd really like you guys to walk away with knowing what you can do after this event to prepare for a really fantastic Restaurant Week that brings in new guests to your restaurant, who makes your loyal guests even happier, and maybe finding out some new things about your restaurant that you want to adjust or play with, and that can mean anything from your servers, that can mean anything to your menu items that you typically hold anyway. This is a really cool, I like to think of it as like a petri dish time that you can test and adjust and make an immediate impact, again, for your bottom line for your restaurant. So I hope those are some things that all resonate with you, that at least make some kind of spark in your head to at least pay attention for the next few minutes. And that being said, by all means, ask questions throughout. If you have anything you'd like to contribute, if I'm wrong with something, if you personally disagree with something I say, please chime in. I'm really curious to hear, because you guys come from a fantastic vantage point of being in the hospitality space with diners, with guests daily. And I come from a separate angle, so I'm really curious to hear what you guys have to say or respond to the things I'm going to share today. First question you probably will ask yourself, if you are going to be doing Restaurant Week for your restaurant, do I do it and why? That's a great question to ask yourself. What I like to think, and I think probably what you will recognize throughout this brief presentation, is that whatever you do with Restaurant Week specifically, it's really customizable for you as a manager, as an owner, as an individual who's a contributor to your restaurant's success. So that all being said, I want, again, you to be aware of the opportunities that you have and then customize it that best fits your needs. So that all being said, I'd like to give kind of 3 scenarios and ask you which you think is most appropriate for someone to take advantage of for Restaurant Week. So scenario 1, we have a new fine dining Italian restaurant opening up on Main Street. Let's call it Main Street in Yarmouth, Maine. That's where I'm from, I'm a little biased. So we have a new fine dining restaurant opening up on Main Street. Scenario 2, we have a well-established French restaurant who's opening up its second location in a neighboring town. Scenario 3, we have I call it a sophomore year, so the second year restaurant that's just opened a year ago, Mediterranean, who is just one location, not increasing, not expanding, but it's their second year in business. So of those 3 restaurants, and if you were to put on the hat of the owner or the general manager, and you're recognizing Restaurant Week as a way to increase your bottom line, get new traffic in the door, which of those 3 restaurants do you think should partake in Restaurant Week with your existing knowledge and understanding really of what it is all about?
All
All of them. Great. That's my thought too. Whatever stage you are in your restaurant, whether you're brand new, whether you're a new owner, whether you're expanding your locations, you always have something to benefit, again, in my humble opinion, with Restaurant Week. The recognition, the branding that's happening regardless, just based on your geo and based on your specific location in whatever town you reside, is unparalleled advertising and opportunity for you guys to take advantage. And it's going to be bringing in greater traffic, and it's going to be securing yourself as that fantastic Mediterranean restaurant down the street, that well-known French restaurant that everybody needs to go to when they go into Yarmouth, Maine, or lastly, that newer Italian space that you've been hearing about and you now have the opportunity as a guest to go to. And you, as the owner, manager, operator of the restaurant, can take advantage of. That all being said, of course, there's going to be some things you want to continue asking yourself and recognizing what is my limit or what is my bandwidth to make the most out of this Restaurant Week. So again, this is very customizable based on your role and based on your restaurant and really based on your objectives for the restaurant. So first and foremost, as the restaurant owner, if we're coming in from that vein, a couple things that you may see if you're thinking about preparing for a Restaurant Week is menu optimization. Let alone with the physicality of it, if you happen to have chalkboards in the restaurant, updating all of that, updating the actual printout of the menu that you have during the Restaurant Week that you are hosting individuals to come into. Those are going to be things that is a component for some individuals. I know I've been speaking with people today at the trade show saying, I just don't have time, Andrea. I can't dedicate a full week that's so custom and so unique and asks for so many other things from me. I can't dedicate that time. Another thing to think about is the staff that you guys have. There's, for any kind of fine dining or even QSR location, there's going to be a mix of veteran staff and brand new servers that you're going to have to train. So if you're thinking about or recognizing that for Restaurant Week, there's going to be an influx of individuals coming, not only brand new persons who don't live in the town or the local area, but also locals who don't often go to your restaurant, you want to make sure that the servers and the staff that you have on hand know what they're doing, are well trained, and if you don't feel comfortable with whom you already have in your system or in your kind of at your disposal, that may be a valid concern to assess how much of the time during Restaurant Week that you take advantage of, or how much time prior to prepare and to properly train these individuals to know what best customer service looks like, and also how to speak to the menu, how to speak to certain just general etiquette that you expect of them in your restaurant, et cetera. So another valid concern or a valid thing to think about. I like to think of these as opportunities, not as much challenges, but it's certainly something to think about and weigh out when you're thinking about getting involved in Restaurant Week. And lastly, building guest loyalty. I've said this before and I'll say it again throughout this presentation. You have, especially during this week of local hospitality, you have your local guests and your loyal customers coming in that you don't want to, for lack of a better word, piss off. And that's probably not going to be something that would happen through Restaurant Week. Restaurant Week is intended to showcase who you are, showcase the food that you have, the servers that you have, but also to bring in new guests to potentially make them repeat customers. That being said, another audience to think about are your tried and true foundational guests that already come in your door anyway. So that's something to think about however you make up your promotions that you may do during this week, or how you even address them when they come in through the door. Be mindful of not only the short-term successes, but also the long-term goals that you have with these guests that are coming in. So that's more intangible, and that's more of a culture thing that you can have and you can exude at your restaurant, but it's another thing to be mindful of anyway when you're saying, yeah, I'm going to participate in Restaurant Week and this is why. From the diner side, it's a pretty easy win. I imagine you can think about yourself seeing Restaurant Week notifications coming to Newport, Rhode Island, for instance. I'm based out of our Rhode Island office, and Newport is a destination tourist location, huge foodie town. And we boast, I want to say 2 Restaurant Weeks. I was talking to you earlier about that. I want to say 2 Restaurant Weeks throughout the year. And this just brings in that many more people to our town. And for me, personally, from my own experience, I'm sure you guys can share this as well, I get excited about joining or participating in Restaurant Week for the new food, for a brand new restaurant that actually has even planned their opening to be around Restaurant Week, and just getting involved and sharing some great food and drinks with my friends and family. So if we're thinking about the origins of Restaurant Week and thinking about getting involved and why not, and from a diner's point of view, these are really the top 3 things I can think about. Trying just new foods that I've never been exposed to before, experiencing new restaurants, and experiencing it with my friends and family. You guys know better than me, the hospitality is exactly that. It is being with other individuals, having great customer service, and really taking time to pause and reflect and just enjoy life. So in case you couldn't deduce what I'm trying to imply, I think the opportunity is worth it with Restaurant Week. I've said it again, I've said it before, I'll say it again, more traffic in the door just means more revenue for you. This is going to be something that we'll talk about shortly, about how to really control the overall success of Restaurant Week. But for all intents and purposes, with more volume of traffic is going to be more revenue for your restaurant. Another benefit is the strong local brand awareness. This is something we'll talk about shortly. There are typically chapters or organizations or boards that help coordinate Restaurant Week in your local area, that they themselves are already doing a huge amount of advertising for, marketing for, that in theory, in that essence alone, is kind of, oh, why wouldn't you do this? It's amazing, almost, I think of it as just like a magnifying glass on your local town or local area that you can just tap into and take advantage of. And lastly, this is the biggest thing, especially from my company, and how we showcase the value that we can provide, and that is making existing new diners repeat guests. Because it's one thing to have Andrea come in and get your what do I like to get? To get your Sam Adams seasonal and a burger, and honestly, I'm kind of a simple girl. But it's one thing to have me come in one time during the week, but then it's another thing for me to be hooked and come every week because I know that this server, I know that this burger is the best one in town. That's how this is where you can weigh the short-term and the long-term goals and successes of your restaurant and its bottom line. So that all being said, those are the 3 primary opportunities that I really see out of Restaurant Week as a restaurant owner operator. To make it a little bit simpler, these are other things that you guys can think about and you can ask yourself why I want to get involved in Restaurant Week. It's purely just a checklist, and here's some things we'll be talking about. 1, trying out new menu items. This is a way that you can customize your involvement in Restaurant Week, and it may be to try something brand frickin' new that you as the chef really want to experiment with. There may be a local farm that you want to leverage some of their produce for, and you really want to emulate that in Restaurant Week because you think that may capture attention of your local guests, and also some new people coming in the door. And that kind of bleeds into making your loyal guests even happier. You want to give them a little bit more than what they're currently used to. I can go into Celestial in Wakefield, Rhode Island. I'm going to make a lot of personal references during this presentation and know that I'm going to get the best salad. It's the most simple arugula salad, but it's the best salad I've ever had. And what would make me happier as a diner at this restaurant up in Wakefield, Rhode Island, Exeter, Rhode Island, is to have it maybe changed a little bit with duck involved or having figs in it, etc. So even little simple things in your menu can mean a lot more for how your guests are happier during this Restaurant Week. New guests dining at your restaurant, we've talked about that before, greater volume just based on the advertising and the marketing that's going to be happening, and the diners themselves speaking with each other and their 6 degrees of separation. Hey, come over here, we're gonna get this really great night out, have a night out with the girls at Celestial down the street. Another big thing that I talked about before is that Restaurant Week is really part of what it's intended for is to capitalize on typically lower traffic times or periods. So that may even just be during a day of the week. Wednesdays or Tuesdays may be pretty low as far as volume coming in the door. So if you have Restaurant Week throughout the entire week, or even start on or have a certain special throughout different days that are typically lower in traffic, Restaurant Week and getting involved in that can certainly circumvent that. Increase revenue and partake in your local restaurant community. These are consistently things that I suggest any restaurant do even beyond restaurant week, because it's a self-fulfilling, successful tactic because of the ongoing revenue that will happen. So congratulations, you've decided to partake in Restaurant Week. You're gonna do it. What the heck do you do now? I'm gonna share with you guys a handful of tactics and keys to think about in order to really make the most out of your time. Number one, be sure what you're offering is clear and consistent. This is something that I can't emphasize enough. You are on a platform now to speak to your local area, to new guests and your existing customers who are coming to your door, and you want them to come in that much more volume. So that means you need to share what you're going to be doing, whether you're going to be featuring a crazy new menu or featuring a certain chef for the week or a certain promotion. What you want to do when you're working with the board or the chapter or the organization who's helping communicate this on perhaps Chamber of Commerce or on their own unique website for Newport, Rhode Island's Restaurant Week, you want to say to them in a simple elevator pitch, if you will, if you guys have heard that in the corporate world, you want to showcase and explain who you are and why and what you're doing in the most succinct possible way. So I say that because there's really three main ways that you can be socializing what you'll be doing during Restaurant Week. One is, again, working with the organization who's properly managing all the restaurants who want to partake in the Restaurant Week. So you want to give to them not only your restaurant name, who you are, what type or theme that you do, but also what's unique about you during Restaurant Week. Another thing you want to be mindful of is simply your website, whether that's going to be a unique section in the website or a brand new page. Being clear and highlighting specifically what you'll be doing is going to maintain that message and make sure it's reiterated to these individuals, because also as a buyer of any kind of consumer or good, you don't just pick up the phone and say, hey, what's going on with this product, or what are you doing with this promotion? You're going to be researching yourself a handful of times before you even either step in the door, speak with someone, or reach out to someone. So what you're doing and messaging across the different mediums that people will be going to, make it the same, make it clear, make it consistent. And lastly, your servers. This is where I like to emphasize on server training a lot, because they're the face, they're quite literally the face when you are not. And they're the individuals who are going to be speaking with these guests and these diners when they come in the door or when they're down the street talking with someone. You want to make sure that they're well trained and educated on what you want your guests to know about when they're coming into your doors. Clear and consistent. Along with that is a menu intentionally designed. So what do I mean by that? This is another flag. This is, if I could throw off kind of sparklers or something, this is something that you can be very customized, and I think probably would want to take a good amount of your brain power around when preparing for Restaurant Week, is your menu. There are a couple main approaches that you can take, one of which is featuring your best dishes that you're already well known for, and another one is to do a brand new menu, customed and featured solely for Restaurant Week. There's not so much cons as there are just other opportunities that happen with each, so I won't say that there's pros and cons to either, but it really is special to what you want out of this Restaurant Week for your restaurant. So if you're featuring your best dishes, successes of this anyway are really just showcasing who you are and why you got in the business to begin with. Probably to provide great food, and you're passionate about the food you serve and you cook. So for the Restaurant Week, if you were to showcase your standout menu items, that's probably a good recognition and is a great way to set expectations for those new diners coming into your restaurant. Man, I can really get this fantastic arugula salad at Celestial Cafe, and I know I can get that time and time again. So that's not only going to be a reminder for your existing customers, but also for the new diners that are coming in your door during that time. And secondly is going to be launching new cuisine. I had mentioned before, and I'm sure you've heard about it, I think the last 5 years, just farm to table has been a constant message in the hospitality industry. And that is one of the many ways that you can customize and make your unique menu for Restaurant Week. Something, for instance, if you wanted to do an entire 7-course or 7-piece meal with that's featuring specifically foods from local farms. Or if you really honestly just want to be creative and you've been wanting to do some kind of Indian pasta or Indian couscous kind of ensemble, you can play around with that during these restaurant weeks. If anything, it's a great test or great experiment to really see what's going to succeed and what you could potentially adapt into or adopt into your menu after restaurant week. So this is something to be very purposeful with and really think about what you want guests and diners to think of and experience when they're in your restaurant during restaurant week. Number 3, over-deliver on expectations. This is really emphasizing on service and customer service. Again, your servers are the face where you are not. Whether you're back of house manager or the front house manager or even the hostess, you want to have everybody be that much more involved, that much more appropriate, and that much more concise with the messaging of restaurant week, with the specials that they have for the night. And you really want to make sure that that is never something that is in question, especially for restaurant week when you're having such volume come in. You want to make sure that customer service is just fantastic. Jump on social media and certainly as heck encourage your customers to as well. So I don't know how many of you work or have different social channels or mediums. I imagine the majority of you have at least a website for your restaurant or your country club, or you may be jumping in on Instagram, which I've found to be much more foodie oriented and more applicable in the hospitality space, whether you use any of those or Twitter, et cetera. Your presence in the social media, again, in restaurant week, but also outside of it, is really a great way to bolster your presence and your awareness and also showcase what other people are thinking about you. Word of mouth recommendations is not a make or break, but a really, really strong way to identify, make yourself known, and capitalize in your local area. So not only with organizations, let's put this in an example, not only with the organizations that are putting together Restaurant Week in your local area, or individuals, maybe other restaurants that you work with down the street or up the street, being involved in their social handles or hashtags is a really basic and simple way to magnify the peoples who are looking at your restaurant. So I can, for instance, say hashtag Newport Foodies during the restaurant week of Newport, Rhode Island. I don't think that's what it was, but in case, let's just say in theory that's what the hashtag was. Anything that you're boasting or promoting or advertising about your restaurant, include any local social media hashtags or recognition or articles, is going to be compounding the presence that you build for yourself and marketing yourself that much easier. So you're not literally physically screaming down the street, come into my restaurant with big pointed arrows. That's just the power of social media in itself. And that's a whole other seminar with someone much more intelligent than I can explain a little bit about that. But it's something that is easy and simple that you guys can take advantage of. Another thing, and this is where some of these tips are kind of blending in together, when you're training your staff and yourself during restaurant week, encouraging your guests and diners to also respond and leverage these hashtags or just voice their opinion about the restaurant will also help add to your brand and add to why going to your restaurant during this restaurant week to capitalize on revenue for your business will mean that much more and bring that many more people back into your restaurant. Number 5, more promotions, more guests. Another way that you can really customize how you want to capitalize on restaurant week. This is where I think there's some debate and very valid debate as to whether restaurant week in itself is actually a revenue generating opportunity. Now, some people think, because I believe they focus solely on the short-term value or the short-term margin that they receive out of restaurant week. Part of it, I think, is based on the promotions they may set. What the heck do you mean, Andrea? So what I mean is, if you are setting your menu up with a certain discount or a certain promotion, say for instance, a restaurant were to say, 2 people dine, you only have to pay for 1 entree and one drink. That means the second person dines for free. If you were a business individual and you were to recognize, how am I going to make the most money? That probably, no, apples to apples, that will not bring in more revenue for that one dining experience. However, if you're so confident that that's a promotion that you want to do during restaurant week, go to town, see how that works, and understand that means that that couple is going to come back in again. So it's a lot of where the promotions and the financial offers that you provide during restaurant week is going to be contingent on your vision. If you want to make more money in the week of restaurant week, or if you want to recognize restaurant week as really the hook to capture more customers to come in afterwards, those are things to weigh. So whether you do a really starkly or drastically cheap dining experience by costs, I mean, and you think that's a strategy that's going to incur greater revenue for your restaurant going forward, that's a method to go forward with. There's another way, which is just a little bit more subtle. It's really just lowering the risk of what you'll be receiving for revenue during restaurant week. Again, I say this because it's really about asking yourself these questions and answering them and making that clear, consistent, and constant message. So not only you as a restaurant owner can know and voice and repeat to your servers and staff, but you can be confident that your bets are going into this restaurant week with business goal in mind, that you're going to be making XYZ outside of it, beyond it. After speaking with certain customers and just to share some other promotions that we've heard about, others that Upserve customers have recognized is even something as simple as a $5 off next time you come in. So that itself is actually feeding future revenue. So you're having for the week of restaurant week the same costs that you currently have. So you may have the same food or brand new food, but the same cost that you would typically provide or ask, but then provide them a $5 off discount next time they come in. So things like that you can adjust. You can think about the timing as to when you want to discount potentially food or opportunities for them to come in at a certain time, and that would also drive in more traffic at a later period. As far as how you can think of other ways to make financial promotions during restaurant week, look at your competitors. So that's going to be the other either French restaurant down the street, or that's literally going to be the next person right next door. Seeing what they're doing, which they probably will be advertising on their social media, or maybe if you have someone that you know of at the organization or the program that's actually putting together and coordinating restaurant week, you can ask them, hey, so what's so-and-so doing on the street? So you can be comparable but also distinct is another thing to think about, and it doesn't hurt to ask anyway. And lastly, understanding who your guests are, why they like you, why they came in, why they didn't come in, why they wouldn't come in again. It's going to be a driving opportunity for your restaurant to improve, and that's going to be improving service, that's going to be improving menu, and that's going to be improving even the culture that you have at your restaurant. It's certainly encouraged, and we've seen successes from our customers who participate in Restaurant Week just to even drop a comment card in the final bill when they leave it at the table. People are more apt to certainly say negative versus positive things, but have the server go up to the diners at the end of the experience and say, even transparently, this is our first time participating in Restaurant Week. We hope that you liked the meals that you guys had today. We'd love to hear about what you thought about the food, about the service. Let them have the opportunity to really share what they think. They may say it verbally to you, but the manager in the back of the room or at her house, she may not even be in the restaurant at the time if that's how she works, it aggregates the information so she can understand how to improve upon going forward. So again, all of these tips are really focused on Restaurant Week in itself, but all of them are beneficial to do outside of Restaurant Week and can come afterwards. And you can continuously grow upon and really improve your business. And that's exactly what I mean by make it last. So Restaurant Week is one of the levers you can pull and one of the things you can do to really make a great traffic inbound to your restaurant and greater margin for your restaurant as well. But what are the things that you want to be doing in order to make it last? These are 5 just kind of general tenets that I certainly encourage and speak about with the individuals I see at the trade show here, at the customers during my day-to-day job. These are things to be mindful of when you're running your restaurant. One, building your brand. This is defining who you are, why you got in the hospitality space, and why it matters to you. I feel and I found such confidence and such passion from people in the restaurant space that this, if anything, is the easiest thing to say. We have an individual, a customer down in downtown Austin, Trulux Fine Dining Restaurant Group, and the managing partner's vision for their restaurant is just building relationships, having that one-to-one connection with the diners that are coming in and with the servers that are loyal to that restaurant and keep coming back year after year, and the chefs, et cetera. Having that relationship across any different type of audience that go to that location is really the vision and the purpose that this person had at his restaurant, excuse me. One thing that I really liked that he had said once was, any experience or any time, totally paraphrasing this, maybe butchering it, but one way to look at it is, even on a Tuesday night, that's someone's anniversary, that's someone's girls' night out, that's someone's good end to a bad day. And if you can build a culture at your restaurant which constantly emulates positivity, thoroughness, and just a happy, positive, good experience and great vibe, that's your brand. That's the intangibleness with your brand. And that's something that any successful restaurant really holds. Menu analytics. I've been speaking with a lot of restaurateurs even just today, and a lot of them say, I think I know what menu items perform well. I know this one sold the most. But one thing that I know Upserve specifically likes to think about, and what I recognize, is there's a lot more to understanding your menu than just which items are served the most. You want to think about, are they the most expensive, or are they actually even bringing these guests back? So guest retention is something to really think about, and that can be derived from the menu, and you showcasing the specific entree that actually would bring these guests back is something that you can own, and you as a restaurant owner operator can really capture and really trigger to make greater revenue for your restaurant. Loyalty program. Again, I've said before, you're going to have your foundation of loyal guests that come back again, and making a loyal program or loyalty program that features and thanks and rewards them is only going to keep them longer. And that's going to mean more covers coming in, maybe greater tips as they grow their appreciation and love for your restaurant. And it's going to make them happier whenever they come in. And it's going to also go across the word of mouth recommendations. These things I keep repeating is because they all interconnect with each other. But loyalty program, and thinking about what's best for your restaurant and what's best for your country club, that's going to be a powerful tool to go beyond just restaurant week. That also bleeds into online reputation. I didn't speak about it last time when I was talking about social media, but there are positives even out of bad reviews. And if anything, it's a greater opportunity for you to capitalize on changing someone's mind and showing to the world that you have or to your local world, wherever you may be, to have the approach and the respect to respond to these people who may have had a bad service experience or may have had undercooked food or something like that. You reaching out to these individuals and seeing what they're saying online, whether it's Yelp or TripAdvisor, et cetera, something like that, you can make an impact on someone who may have had a negative one before, and you can change their mind. It's a really great opportunity to take advantage of something that maybe you typically wouldn't have thought otherwise. Regardless, beyond that, positive reviews are also fantastic. So you can reach out to these individuals who said, 5-star review, Andrea was a great server, I got everything I needed and more. And you can reach out to that person and encourage them to come back again, and you'll take their next drink with a couple off for free. Anything like that. There's a lot of ways that you can manage and capitalize on the intangibles, if you will. And lastly, adaptability. What I mean by adaptability is being mindful of your local environment, what's going on, if there's an event, if there's a sporting event, if there's a certain fundraiser, what can you as a restaurant do to quickly either market a menu item featuring all proceeds will go to XYZ fundraiser, and how you even then train your staff to be mindful of that. So having the pulse with your team and having the recognition of your local area to be adaptable and move and adjust can only mean and cement your restaurant in the local hospitality space that much more. So these are really 5 predominant keys that I see and Upserve sees really as a company, and the restaurateurs we speak with, those that are successful capitalize on all of these. That being said, this was really a kind of a quick tutorial of what I've seen anyway as far as Restaurant Week, things to be mindful of, things you can take advantage of, and not really many things to avoid. The biggest thing I'd like to end with is really Restaurant Week is something that you can customize and make unique for your restaurant, ask a lot of questions, and use it as an opportunity to experiment within reason, I think, for whatever kind of your risk assessment is for your restaurant. It's certainly something that we've seen within our customer base as a kind of a no question. And I hope that these are certain branding techniques, engagement techniques that you guys can think about when preparing for your involvement in your next Restaurant Week. Yes?
I just had a question. I've been serving at the same place for 4 years, and this last year when we did Restaurant Week, I was still just serving. In my experience, it seemed like we took our prices down to make it feel Restaurant Week. And personally, when I had people return then after Restaurant Week, it seemed like they had some real sticker shock about returning then. Have you seen that happen? Do you have any opinion on how to, or if you should make a discount for Restaurant Week?
That's a great question, and there's a couple things you can think about, but that's, if anything, a potential con with adjusting the pricing. First off, the first thing I can think of, which I meant to mention earlier, is that it depends on the Restaurant Week that you're involved with, but there's actually even at times requirements that you need to discount 20 to 30%, or do a certain promotion for that week to recognize and showcase that you are involved in that Restaurant Week. In that case, I would imagine, and I would anticipate that if you were to reduce your costs, it would be less of a sticker shock value, to your term, when people were to come back, because they knew, because that was a clearly stated initiative or promotion that you were doing during the Restaurant Week that was part of the actual entity, that it wouldn't be as much of an impact. But if you have the flexibility in the Restaurant Week and the organization that you're working with to really adjust the menu and the cost to your liking, that is one of the things that I would recognize as something to be careful and weigh. If you are going to do that, and if you are in a circumstance to customize it, that's really where socializing it and making the servers very transparent about this is why this filet mignon is only $10 today versus next time you come back it might be $24, like typical price, kind of something like that. That really blends in with the multiple things of weighing what's best for your restaurant, and at the end of the day, always making the messaging clear and concise with yourself and the servers that you have. So that's a great question. It's nice to hear, not nice to hear that that was the result, but it's interesting to hear real life feedback, so thank you. Really appreciate your time coming out here. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys.